Hey, y'all. Welcome to season 4 of the Roots of Change podcast. We are live on YouTube and in studio, and we are talking about rooting into strategic communications in 2026. And I'm really excited to have one of our collaborators, Taryn Talley, on to really geek out with me. How are you doing these days?
I'm really good. I'm just really focused and just in kind of hustle and grind mode right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking before this. We're both Leos. I'm a Leo rising, and Taryn, you are a triple Leo.
I am a triple Leo, yes.
Triple Leo. So that it means that it is the year of the Leo, and folks are ready to go.
Yeah. So I'm going to channel that energy in everything I'm doing.
Amazing. Well, I know we've got some folks trickling in. It looks like we have some folks here in studio, and I believe we are live on YouTube. That was all of the echoes that you heard at the beginning. So we'll just like let folks trickle in. But in the meantime, I know you and I are really going to talk a lot about rooting into communications in 2026, what we want to leave behind in 2025, and what we want to bring with us or deepen or invest in 2026. And I think right now it is such an important time for us to be reevaluating communications on in the broadest sense of the word. The Roots of Change Agency, we talk about storytelling for social change. To me, communications goes beyond communications. It is storytelling, and it's all of the definition of that, whether it's films, whether it's art, whether it's politics. All of that comes into play in terms of like what we're reckoning with, especially in the United States, but on a global scale.
Yeah, for sure. I think people, I don't know, I feel like people really generalize and just really bucket communications into something that's nice to have.
Mm,
But I mean, as you and I both know, it's like a real critical component. I mean, it's like, it's in my mind, I mean, I have a communication design degree, right? So I would be a BFI. And, design has always been about communication, and marketing is about communication and just how you put yourself out there is comms. You know what I mean? So it's like everything that we're doing is that kind of rooted in,
yeah, for sure.
rooted on the Roots of Change Agency podcast. What an idea.
I know there's too many good metaphors for us here, which was by design. Do you want to kick us off, Taryn, and start talking about what we're leaving behind in 2025, and what you feel like is important for you and your work, but also just all of our work right now?
Yeah. So like, when I contributed into the list, right? Like I thought for me, the primary one is, and it's just coming from the circumstances of over probably about what, a year of Trump.
Mm.
Um, for me, what I'm leaving behind is legacy media and legacy social media platforms. I'm still on LinkedIn, which is probably one of the like stodgiest, platforms you ram on. But I've managed to walk away from followings on Twitter, Instagram. I hardly use Facebook. I walked away from Threads. I'm trying to focus a little bit more on Mastodon, not doing a great job, and Blue Sky and other smaller platforms, right? Like Fam Connect. So they've got that Hey Fam, LGBTQ community small business platform. And I'm like part of the early investors on Hire. So that's HIYER. So it's a platform that actually connects, purchasing and procurement people with thought leaders and people who do the work, right? So like kind of empowering, kind of like what LinkedIn should be doing, but doesn't do really well. So I think as I'm leaving, legacy media and legacy social media, I'm pursuing smaller, more targeted, purpose driven social media platforms. And then with the legacy media, I've kind of like really taken like getting my news from just, neutral sources that are just reporting on what's happening, and I can find those on Blue Sky, You can find them around. Like, I'm a podcast consumer, so like I'm always like looking for those really good podcasts that kind of just lay it out there, right? Speak the truth to power. And I think it's important for us, like at least for our mental health as well, to like just we've got to compartmentalize some of this stuff. When you dig in on these platforms, their behavior and what they do is horrible. I mean, there's no other word for it, right? The targeting of children, like just all that stuff is just ew and ick and creepy. And I'm just like, I just don't understand how we kind of got here. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like the worst humans have just taken over, and like the majority of decent people are just abandoning whatever they've got to focus on survival.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really important because it's something we need to balance, like we're in this moment of real need for survival. And I think, from a communications perspective, a lot of that has to do with like time and bandwidth. Like, are you taking care of yourself in the way and getting the message out there in the way that you want to? Because I see so many folks like burning out because now it's like, especially with social media, it's like, well, you have to be on big tech because that's where people are, but then should you be on other tech? Should you be on Mastodon? Should you be on, Blue Sky, which has its sketchy founder energy as well? um, and I think it's really like a balance. It is a lot more about that connective tissue that you're talking about, like finding the niches, finding the people that are engaging. One of the things I'm leaving behind is I'm calling it "Don't go chasing algorithms." Don't go chasing
And
because there's so much of communications that big tech has like trained us to follow their algorithms. And I think especially for social change communicators, folks who are trying to communicate a positive message, communicate a vision for the future, it doesn't really lend itself for that on big tech because there's that outrage, there's that like that constant need for advertising and selling and the depression and suppression of real content. And so to me, that's a question for communicators is around your tone and your messaging. Like, are you coming forward in the way that you want to, or are you kind of falling into some of those big tech algorithm traps?
I mean, I think that's pretty huge because I mean, part of like my statement is involving that kind of algorithmic suppression and what I'll consider kind of really toxic discoverability, right? So it's really hard to break through. On that, I've been doing a lot of work in GEO, so generative engine optimization. And I just had a really good session with Gemini last night. I was going back and kind of developing some content and fine tuning the messaging. But it's like I'm actually kind of abandoning being found on social media and building a profile that's across LLMs because like LLMs are not going to go away. They will change, they will adapt, right? It will grow into something else. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the non-standard way, right? To break away from that in that algorithm. And I asked, so like, I'll like tell on myself, but like I asked Gemini last night and I said, with all my GEO work, has anyone in a chat with you searched for me? And Gemini responded, I'm sorry, first, that's a total meta ask from you. Like that's what Gemini responded. And then it said, I'm sorry, I can't disclose private chats with my users. Like that would be a bad thing. So, but it was just like, it kind of made a joke, right? But it was like, cause I want to see if it's working, right? The discoverability of it and, using the community, like, say I'm writing for you, right? For the Roots of Change, right? Just being able to find those communities to share the message and get that out there. It breaks the algorithm. Like we don't need that. We were doing this stuff like before, right? So
Yeah, to me, it's like it's coming back to kind of the old school organizing, which is a lot more about communication and talking and engaging and finding that joy through that. And I think we've lost a little bit of that because we're constantly trying to chase numbers versus engagement, which is that deeper layer than just looking at the stereotypical statistics that the big tech apps show.
Yeah, I mean, I just published an article that came out of a post that was, has social media jumped the shark, right? Because I mean, if you think about it, it's like Web 2, social platforms started coming in at like 2004 to 2008, right? It had a lot of promise on community and other things. I mean, you were there, right? You remember that early on, right? Where it's just like, oh, this is great. Everybody's like kind of engaging in conversations and knowledge and all this stuff. And then you realize that, like we were talking about the other day in our chat, 60% of traffic and engagement is bots. As we saw recently, a lot of top conservative accounts are not even US. And they're actually bot farms in foreign countries that the conservative movement actually despises. Like, it just feels like social media is less real than it was in 2010 or 2012. It has just migrated and morphed.
It just has to do with their own profit incentives. It's all about advertising. It's about keeping us on the platform for as long as possible. And what they were finding was that connection wasn't keeping us on the platform because when you connect with someone on Instagram, then you might connect with them off Instagram. And I've been thinking a lot about Cory Doctorow is on like a tear these days. He is like really going after like how much big tech has infiltrated every single industry. And, having like started and built my career through advertising, when you're working at an advertising agency, you are the fulcrum between big tech, big media, and big business US capitalism. And so you see that kind of inherent issue, especially for nonprofits, for organizers, for people who are trying to move the world forward. There is, we're playing on in the master's tools, and we have to kind of acknowledge that and acknowledge that, we can play there, but we're not going to win on the master's tools.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of a different spin on it, right? Because I do believe that, you can destroy the master's house with the
Yeah.
master's tools, right? Like, I do feel like that is possible with commitment, dedication, and a community behind you. But, I think, for me, it's kind of like we have to realize that who's the product, right? So we are both the product and the target. These platforms are not the product, right? Without our content, without our communication, our messaging, our connection, our engagement, these platforms would be nothing. I mean, if you think about Facebook, I mean, it started as a creepy dating app for dudes who probably should join an incel group or something. But,
It
you
was
know,
women. They were rating women.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I think about that all the time actually, because can you imagine being a woman having worked your ass off to get into Harvard, and then this
Mhm.
boy Mark Zuckerberg is rating you on how if you're hot or not? Like that is the foundation of Meta.
Yeah. I mean, that's so like when you look at it, like it's not, yeah, I mean, these things were never designed and optimized to do good. I mean, they were developed to do bad, right? To allow people an advantage that they might not have in real life. But I feel like it's like with that, it's like we have to remember that without us, they would be nothing. Without us, that ad revenue would dry the hell up. I mean, seriously, like who would they advertise to? Bots? Bots are buying shit, but it's like, so like, I think people just have to understand their power in this, when they look at these platforms, like walking away from Instagram. So like we were saying earlier, right? I have cranked out a ton of content. I've been doing some really good work in getting the message out. I, r- you know, grudgingly got a Substack set up because I have a ton of followers on there. So I need that kind of like exposure. But like building out Substack and Medium and publishing content, dropping that into any communication I have with people. right? If we're talking about something like that, I share that article, right? I kind of like as a resource, but that's the thing. It's like I'm building away from that and stopping that Instagram scroll for me. Like that was my like nighttime chill was like just endless reels for like 2 hours, then go to bed, right? And for me, it's really helped me to optimize what I'm doing and what I'm saying and what I'm thinking and what I'm writing. So walking away from a platform never designed for me, you know, actually had really good productivity benefits.
Mm, yeah. No, I think that's really important. I'm curious in the audience if anyone has changed their social media usage recently and like how they felt, how they did that, anything around that. Because I think, I really try to introduce friction for myself because like at the end of the day, these apps are designed to keep us addicted. And so when we're human, we can only do so much, and so you have to kind of build in that friction so that you don't fall into that addictive trap. And then as you start to build that muscle away from Instagram or whatever it may be, that's when you can kind of start feeling the benefits a little bit. But that first initial step, I feel like, is very hard.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it kind of depends. Like for me, Twitter was the hardest actually, because I spent 8 years on the platform. It's the first platform I came out as trans on. Um, and I built up a sizable following of like 12,000 people. I was writing for Democratic politicians. I was mean tweeting Donald Trump every day of his first term because I'm just that kind of person. so, um, but like I built up this huge following. And then when Musk acquired it, I just was like, I don't support him. I don't support his beliefs. I don't support anything about him. And I just walked away from that. And that's I have the Twitch, right? Because it's like, I mean, I did over 150,000 tweets in 8 years. That's a lot of messaging, and it's like breaking that was hard. Instagram was easy. Like, I don't even, I like barely remember even doing crap on Instagram at this point. It's only been 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We need that sign that says we're experiencing some technical issues right now. But feel free to drop in the chat. Let us know what you think about that. Have you dropped off any social platforms? Have you made any changes, any choices or decisions? So, and Sam is back. I was doing my best stalling. I mean, like,
Always. I mean, it's a tech podcast. We talk about tech, and of course, that tech has to also be here. um, I'd love to move into some more hopeful things, maybe, where we talk about what we're picking up in 2026. I know I'm curious, like, what are for the folks in the chat, like, what is the focus that you have right now? Like, what are is it social media? Is it email? What's really keeping you up at night? And for me, I think a lot of it has to do with framing, how we're framing our story, how we're framing our message. I think about this from like a film perspective. I'm I'm getting the circle of death, so if I lose you, I apologize again. um, but when we think about the frame of the movie, it only shows what is in frame. And so for the United States, a lot of times, us, for example, are not included in the frame of the United States story. And I think that's something that we really need to think about when it comes to, like you said, legacy media, leaving them behind, leaving legacy social media behind. Like, how are we finding those places or investing in those places?
I mean, despite our best efforts, technology still sucks. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to hear from y'all, like where you're heading with that and how you're framing the messaging and communication. And she's back.
I swear it's like the morning that my internet doesn't like me in the morning, so whatever. Um, I'm sure you carried that through in a very nice way.
Well, I just would like to hear from people, like what their thoughts are, how they're framing their messages.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like kind of playing off of what you were saying. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like no, I think it's important, like the framing of it and like what you're bringing to the table. I think for me, what I feel like for 2026, it's intention. right? Like, what are you intentional about? What are you focused on? I saw like I was saying about Fam Connect and Hey Fam, so LGBT small business site, social platform. And I saw a call, I think it was from either the CEO or the CMO, but they were asking for people to engage on people's posts, right? Because people are posting things and people are just scrolling through and not engaging on it, right? Like, and I feel like that's you've got to be intentional with what you're supporting. So, if it's like if you you want messaging of XYZ, you've gotta, like, drop a like, drop a heart, add a comment, right? Share it with somebody else, especially for, like, with communities that are historically marginalized, right? So, like, Sam and I, like, will focus on, like, our communities and our intersections, right? And make sure that we uplift those voices. For me, one of my favorite things about that LinkedIn end of the year summary is how many engagements I've had, like, how many reposts did I do? How many comments, right? Because if I can see it, like, I will definitely, like, drop something on there and give some engagement and support those people. But I'm intentional with, like, trying to help people with their engagement, and trying to get people to, like, just like something or just be like, "Hey, just engage or acknowledge it," right? So I think, like, with us, it's gotta be we've gotta understand what we're intentional about and just living that in, like, a 24/7 thing. So, like, we're gonna support people, let's support people, and let's just do it with intent and consistency and just because that helps creators understand that stuff's resonating, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's a lot about reciprocity, and it's also about like that organizing piece again of like we have to build relationships for us to build, to grow,
Yeah.
and I think with social media we've lost that because it's so much of like the like and the little buttons and the emojis, and there's not a lot of connection within those interactions. And the more that like we as organizers, we as communicators can lean.
It's that day for tech. But I mean, I still like, even regarding what Sam was saying, is like getting some positive feedback, getting some engagement, hearing that something resonated is important to creators, right? So, like, if your intention is to support your intersections or, your communities, then just make it happen. I'm really getting good at the tech side, right? Where I'm like Sam, playing off of what Sam said.
Well, we do have an episode coming out with Joe Cardillo, and I was having bad internet back then, and so there's a few where he really jumps in, and so definitely check out the Mastodon episode.
I'll
uh,
have to look at that.
but I mean, honestly, like tech, we can talk about what we're bringing in for 2026. Because for me, like I'm trying to de-tech as much as possible. Like going back to the organizer thing, what are the creative ways of engaging that are outside of what we think about? And like that might actually be a lot easier than what we're thinking, because I feel like there's this like stress when it comes to being a communicator. It's like I work at a nonprofit or I work at a, campaign. I need to do XYZ. Let me check the box for Instagram, check the box for blah blah blah. And that just might not be the right answer for you. And I don't think that we're doing enough of that, like pausing, the strategic pause. And definitely like check out our templates. We have a ton of free planning templates, and all of that is designed to build that strategy into the pre-planning. Like if you don't have a ton of hours, download one of the templates and then, spend 10 minutes and just write as much as you can about your strategy. And at least you have something. At least you're moving with a base versus I'm too busy. I can't think about anything. Like, how do we root in? How do we find those like small pockets of strategic moments?
Excellent point.
Oh, pause and effect. Yes, I love that. I'm going to share that here. Yeah, I think that's so important. So I guess like, there's so much we could keep talking about. I'm trying to think of like what people are really focused on. If you are live with us, definitely add in any questions in the chat. We're happy to answer those as we go. I think another piece that I've been thinking about is like the AI hype. And I'd love to like tease with you, Taryn. We've got a few articles coming up from you. Next week we have the what was it called? The model collapse, and I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of what that means. There's different varying degrees of understanding about AI, and so can you explain a little bit about the model collapse?
Yeah, so I came from the perspective of thinking about if you're a person, like a human, and you're eating nothing but a bag of Doritos every day, right? Your long-term prospects aren't good for for the health of your model, and what happens with like the proliferation of AI slop. I've seen people like writing like doing prompts in an AI to write a comment on someone's social media post. Like that kind of like slop is ingested into models, right? So as it is with a person, if you're eating nothing but McDonald's and Doritos, like a model ingesting that kind of slop, it starts losing what they consider is like kind of like the nuance of humanity, right? So like there's like in the way we think, in the way we talk, there are always little nuances that we pick up from our experiences in our life that we can put a little, it puts a touch on it, right? And I think the people that see and sense the AI slop that's around them are seeing the lack of that nuance, that little spark of like what makes us different, right? What makes us, who we are as a species, right? So that's the kind of like the pitch for the article that I'm going through, and then following up with a second article for Roots of Change, which is and this might resonate with some of you, but if you've experienced suppression with an algorithm on a site, like let's say LinkedIn, I begrudgingly still have a premium. I hate that I have to do this. Um, but I'm paying for the privilege of suppression, right? And it's $300 a year for suppression. And what I'm going to propose is kind of like what I would consider Sarbanes-Oxley for consumer algorithms. So any algorithm that is either part of a purchase plan that you're using that like somehow it's a commercialized algorithm and you're contributing to it. I want that transparency that Sarbanes-Oxley implemented for the financial services world and for like just companies' financial health for the algorithm. So I want to know how many times bias has been identified. I want to know how many, like, what's the rate of suppression, right? I want to know how the algorithm picks things, right? That, like, how does it promote Chad White's content, right? It suppresses Sam Chavez's content, right? Like, that's what I want to know from that. And that's the level of transparency that we need with these consumer algorithms, right? So, like, think it, and it could also be spanned out. And that's my article I'm writing this weekend, but I'm considering it from even healthcare decisions, right? So we need to have a lineage and a trackability of when something makes a decision. How was that decision? And that should be able, like we as consumers, should be able to query that and say, how was this decision made? I need to see the printout of like what happened. What was the traceability of this algorithm that decided that I don't need this procedure? Right? And even financial services, same thing. So we need a hell of a lot more transparency because if you go on LinkedIn and you see that like everybody is getting suppressed except for certain, I want to know why. Like I want them to explain to us like we're shareholders. We're not. We're consumers that are paying for the privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to be very transparent with that. And that's coming up.
Well, I love that. And, it's like we're obviously in a place where regulation is not an option. Um, and,
Not for
and
at least 3 years.
yeah, and we have to put that pressure on. So like, I think that's so important to have that conversation. I think about, Lena Khan, who was the FTC chair under Biden. In my opinion, the best hire other than Ketanji Brown Jackson that he made, and Deb Holland. But she
Amazing. Yeah.
she yeah she Lena Khan put the fear in the big tech bros. And if we want to ask why Donald Trump is president right now, Lena Khan has a lot to do with that because she was really going hard, really going after regulation in a very smart and strategic way, understanding how our laws work, how the Reagan era has really shaped regulation for the worse. But she was smart about it, about how to go around that. So like, I'm really excited for New York. I'm glad that that New York has Lena Khan because she is working. She's working with the Mamdani team. She was working with their transition, and now I believe she's doing work in their offices. So that's exciting to at least know that that work is still being done at a smaller but still an important scale.
Well, I mean, New York is a huge state, right? In terms of population, in terms of just like the GDP, it is a sizable entry, right? So like having her in that space is like it's kind of like how I see how California is doing some of the things by bringing in some of the federal workers that were fired, right, to maintain the connections. How California is tying themselves to the EU, so it's the fourth biggest economy by GDP. um, they are kind of creating their own space. And I think New York is doing the same thing. Illinois, to many regards, is doing that too. So, like, these are states that combined, I think, has something like 70 or 80 million people, which is larger than most European countries, right? So, like, three states like like that are really making impact by doing that. But yeah, I think like for me that regulation and regulatory standpoint has to happen. It disturbs me that it doesn't. And seeing like tools like Grok, AI, what do you call it? The Afrikaner AI, um, they're being used by the military. Like that, these are dangerous, dangerous tools. Like, I mean, if Elon Musk gets a query return that he doesn't like, the engineers change the platform, right? They change the requirements, they change the coding, they make it more malleable to what he wants. Now imagine that having access to weapon systems, right? That should be terrifying like every human that's on the planet.
Yeah. And I think like that's what I mean a little bit by like master's tools. It's like
Yeah.
we can you're right, we can burn the house down with the master's tools.
I was thinking taking an axe to it, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of fun metaphors we could really play into. But I think like, there's there's like the Grok example, which is a very clear example of like Elon Musk is a white supremacist. He's an Afrikaner. Like, if you come, like, his family line from South Africa is like the most virulent strain of racism on this planet. And we also have to understand like how AI is built in the first place, which, like you said, it's built on all of our data, it's built on stolen data, it's also built on past data. And so it's built on the old world. It's built on white supremacy. It's built on capitalism and patriarchy. And we can understand that and we can use those tools to our advantage. But if we don't have that lens to it, then we are being used by those tools. I think I heard, like, you know, not to get into the Epstein of it all, but I did also hear that, like, there's a pretty large statistic of, like, high probability that the AI that you're using used childhood sexual images to build its model, which to me is just something that we really need to like hone in and talk about because that is like that's the thing. That is it. That's why we have to really have real conversations about these products and not just trust that they're going to work the way that we want them because the people at the top are making those decisions.
Yeah, and we need to verify that, right? To quote Ronald Reagan, who I believe is the grandfather for all this discontent for the last 5 decades. I mean, I lived through his reign. And I remember pundits back then, like before it was like, the interwebs came out and it was like the nightly news pundits and they talked about this guy's like impact will last 50 years. And here we are, almost what, 40, 45 years. Um, but he always said like trust but verify, when it came to like nukes in Russia. which is ironic, given who's in the White House. But I feel like we have to verify that, right? So like there's a slate of legislation. I think that, and here's what I would pose out to people who like me are in that AI space, developing content for that. Like I'm doing a consumer algorithm thing, like I mentioned, but I think there's also a way for us to develop content and then can continue to send this to our politicians, continue to send this to I'm like, I will send it to Gavin Newsom till I'm blue in the face. I will send it to Rokana, right? I will send it to everybody I can, including Nancy Pelosi's replacement, to get somebody to pay attention to this, right? Because I feel like as soon as we can kind of and I want to say get past, but we should not get past it. We need to have the trials that are necessary, like we did in Germany in 1947, to hold people to account. So once we have those, and we can legislate some stuff, we need to be putting those guardrails on, right? To understand that impact, to be able to test that. Like the training data should not allow returns that tout, like you just said, right? Like the patriarchy, like the worst parts of capitalism, you know, like the Nazi mindset, and like you should not be able to like do a slide presentation in Goebbels' voice, right? Like that kind of thing should be like, another legislative piece. I know people recoil from regulation, but regulation, I think, like for me, how I think of it is American rivers no longer catch fire because of regulation, right? Like, we have species that have been saved because of regulation and rules. I think that there's a place for them. So, like, I'm kind of fall on the, I guess it would be, I don't know if it's technocrat. What would it be like? A little bit of a Rudite, kind of, but it's like, I believe that we should be controlling things, right? Like, I saw something and I'll finish with this, but a poster had shared that they had created, scientists at Stanford, I believe, created a virus with an AI that actually attacked a biological organism and destroyed it, right? So, like, there's things happening that there are no guardrails on. And, for me, it just struck back at like, because I'm a sci-fi fan. When you look at like some of the movie, like I'll give the movie, I Robot. There are laws that govern things, right? And those laws are meant to protect people. Sometimes the outcome doesn't match your expectation, but the laws themselves are required to keep the masses, right? So the needs of the many above the needs of the one. And I think back on like what we're seeing today, and that's the kind of level that we need, right? Is like to not do harm. Like it can do amazing things, but it can also do really bad things. And I feel like that's what we kind of need, that kind of protection.
Yeah, definitely. And the regulation has been the right has propagandized regulation and made sure that everyday folks don't see it as a benefit, but really it is about preventing the elites from capturing our society, which is what they're doing now. And that's again going back to Reagan, that ongoing drumbeat of propaganda, the 70s. Like when you look at Carter, like I read this whole 42-hour audiobook of the Reagan lead up to the Reagan administration. So it was really just the Carter administration and all of the propaganda and the way that they use messaging and wedge issues. Like it's all the same playbook that they're using today. So
Where does that playbook come from? It comes from the Germans in 1920, late 20s and 30s, right? They're using the same playbook as that. And guess who the Germans got it from?
yeah.
Right? Pro South, the indigenous genocide that is barely even acknowledged anymore. And all those good things that Americans have done to Black and Brown people and historically marginalized communities for a couple centuries, right? So it just feels like we're living the same shit from like 1778,
Yeah.
to be honest. Sorry.
Well, we are. We are. That's exactly what we're doing. Everyone's like, we're in this era, we're in this era. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
we're in
I know.
all the eras. we're,
And if we're going to fix things, it's going to take at least 20 years, maybe 25.
oh, I I
Yeah.
think
I
it's,
mean, I wouldn't be long dead by then, but yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's going to be a project, but that's where I hope that, we can lead, we can really start telling our stories more. I think 2026 is that moment. Like, let's change the story. Our contributor Joe Cardillo talks about just how much the big tech has like taken over our media. I was listening to like local podcasts about San Francisco and just all of the little publications across the Bay Area that like Peter Thiel funds. And we just need to be aware that they're spending billions of dollars to try to maintain this story. And it's not working. Like, we don't want this story. We want a better story. And so, if you're an organizer, if you're a communicator, if you're doing this work, the opportunity is here and people are ready for that. It's just about finding that like heart first message that's going to connect beyond the likes. Um, I'll briefly talk about some of the things that we're doing at the Roots of Change Agency this year. We're really trying to expand and just support folks through care, connection, and communications. Like, we need that connection, we need that care. So before we close in the next 10 minutes, we are going to do just like some general like care practices and talk briefly about that. But we're also doing more with art. We're doing more with filmmaking. I'm going to be releasing our road tripping for change. So I'm really excited to get back on road with you and share like all of the like deep lessons that we learned across this country. I mean, we talk about storytelling and like going to Harriet Tubman's house was wild, and like really getting to feel her energy and how she didn't know what the future was, but she knew what she needed to do. So those are the things that we're really going to be like building up. And then we also just have our really deep resource library. So I'm really excited. I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. Um, you never know.
B50.
50-50. So I did want to like briefly pull this up because you were talking about how you can't see any of or like that 60% of internet traffic is now AI or bots, which is wild. But this is from an archive I've been going through, like my old Twitter files back when I started marketing in the like early 2000s. So this one is just a friendly reminder that digital advertising has always been sketchy. We have not always known, like, is anyone seeing our ads? Like, what are we paying for? I don't know. So, if they treat advertisers like that, just imagine how they treat us. So there's that piece. I also am really excited. I wanted to share our new resource hub. So this is our video library on PeerTube. It's on Spectra TV, which is a PeerTube subdomain. And this is the alternative to YouTube. So we're still going to be publishing on YouTube. We're going to publish our public podcasts and our video clips like we always do. You should see our statistics because we definitely got flagged a few months ago. So like we took a big hit on YouTube. But I really wanted to start this because this is going to be our main source for video, because it's away from big tech. We can do a lot more. There's a lot of like embeds. So we have 3 different channels. We've got the Roots of Change podcast. We've got for social change communicators and for Heart First activists. And then within each of these, we have like sub playlists as well. So you can really get geeky with your organizing as you need. And then also, if you're interested in going deeper as a communicator, I just want to briefly share all of the amazing membership perks that we have. So one of them being that you can join us here on our lives. We're going to have more lives and chat conversations. So if you're a member, we're definitely going to host more organizers, communicators, folks who are doing that work on the ground. as well as just like all of our resources. So we have our Signal channel, which is more just like direct updates, um, basic tips, video quick tips, as well as just like planning resources. If there's any kind of rapid response, we're trying to send out messaging guides as we receive them from trusted sources. And then the other fun part that we're really going to be expanding this year is amplifying your communications. So the Roots of Change Agency and our media ecosystem is meant for you. Like, this is all for you. This is for social change. So if you are doing any of that work, please let us know. We want to hear about it. You can submit your resource or you can share your thoughts, and it goes directly to a form that's very basic. Just fill it out, and we will work on promoting your resources, your events, all of the things across our media ecosystem. Again, like, this is really designed to avoid the algorithms. People are posting on Instagram, and not a lot of folks or like, some folks aren't seeing that because they're not on Instagram. So how can you diversify where you're posting and to who you're posting? So if your audience is activists, organizers, and social change communicators, feel free to promote your work on the Roots of Change Agency. So that's a very brief, also just a reminder that we have our planning resources. So you can go and hopefully this loads. This is our full library of free planning resources. They're also now built on Proton. So you can use our Google Docs, you can use Microsoft, and then you can also use a secure end-to-end encrypted. So we've got email planning templates, digital advertising planners, communication project brief. My favorite is the social media planning and calendar, because there's a lot going on and it's easier to just get it all together in one spot. So that is the very quick and brief overview of all the things that we have in store this year.
Yeah, I have so much respect for what you're doing with this, because I like, it's really important that it's for us and by us, right?
Yes, exactly.
And I think like your tireless drive for that, and it's like, I really admire you for like all the work you're putting into it, and just connecting people and just like, you're doing amazing work, get into some good trouble. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. And good trouble is the best trouble. Like, let's have fun as we tear apart fascism
With their own tools.
with their own tools.
Yes, I'm
So
down for it.
we have a few minutes. Do you want to share just some ways that you are staying grounded in this moment? I know, I mean, for myself, I may have been spending some doom scrolling nights and I shouldn't. So I do my best to like be off social media as much as possible, but sometimes I get into the doom scroll. So what are some tips from you?
Um, yeah, I still hit like a doom scroll. Like I'll do some of the blue sky stuff, right? Because I want to know what's going on in Minneapolis. I want to find resources that I can share, right? That people can donate to, and then kind of repost that and get that content up. But like for me, I'm just into the creative mode. So like I'm just like building things and just refining things and just like kind of getting into my own with creativity. So like, and for me, it's just I'm just like exploring, right? I just like I'm not doing it for like where I have to be like, oh my God, I gotta get like 7 things done for this money. Where I can, I'm spending a lot of time just writing and consuming and understanding and learning and just going from there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, doing the new series where we're doing on the book review with Marguerite. So like Linda and I work on that book review and we're going to meet up in LA and kind of do a couple months of books. And just so it's like, it was nice to read like 4 or 5 books last year and then share that with other people and perspectives. So it's just, outside of the work, it's just, just kind of creating and doing stuff and just making things happen. I mean, I am looking forward to like our little powwow action, on the 14th. So like, that's going to be my like the chill day of not doing any writing and just like hanging with you. and just really, embracing the community and enjoying it. Maybe get some fry bread. I mean, I could use a taco. So
Yeah,
yeah.
let's get some fry bread tacos for sure. Yeah, so if you're based in the Bay Area or California, the Bay Area, I always get this wrong. It's Bates, Bay Area American Indian Two Spirit Organization. They host a powwow every year for Two Spirit folks, and the whole community, or Indigenous folks, come in from all across the country. And it's just really gay and it's really fun and it's really Indigenous.
Super indigenous.
Super Indigenous, lots of good art.
Super cool.
So definitely check that out. And yeah, I mean, that would be my answer too, actually, is that like I'm going in community and I'm making sure I'm finding that balance of like, have I spent too much time on the computer? Okay, well, what's the community event I need to go to? So having that balance between community, people time, nature time, finding just like time for me to walk around in the woods and not have my headphones in. So there's a lot of ways for us to stay rooted through this moment. And like we said, Joe and I talked about this at the beginning of last year for our podcast. This is by design. The federal government, the MAGA regime, is intentionally trying to rock all of us. Like we are meant to be overwhelmed. We are meant to not have our strategic thinking hat on. So the most revolutionary thing that we can do right now is to find our groundedness, find our path, and find those actions that just steadily lead to finding more hope, and less doom scrolling.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone who has joined in studio and live. I really appreciate it. And tell your friends, the best way to get the Roots of Change Agency out to the world is mouth to mouth, like one-to-one communication. We are being suppressed all over the internet. So
Let's fight it by doing like their intent, right?
yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, with that, I hope you all stay rooted, and we will be back in the podcast feed on Monday with an amazing organizer talking about storytelling and strategy. See you guys.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.